I write what I feel, and I write what I observe and what, sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's universal, it's kind of a social commentary, and sometimes it's kind of both things. It starts out personal and then it takes it to a broader level that everyone can relate to.
Hi, I'm that Joe Payne, and you're watching LiveProg.
Joe Deninzon, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
It's afternoon for you, right?
Yeah, good afternoon.
It's evening here in the Netherlands.
It's morning for me because I wake up so late,
Okay.
But it's actually afternoon. So,
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just I'm staying home for a while because Kansas, our singer, has thyroid cancer, so he's getting surgery, and we're off the road till April. So I'm just doing a lot of recording work and writing work, and just staying in the studio for a while, which is fun. Having some downtime, working on some new stuff.
All right. Well, I hope everything goes well with the surgery for him.
Thank you. Yeah, everything looks positive, so keeping our fingers crossed.
We will definitely do that. So, you got a new album out. I'll show it a little bit. Oh, up there. That's my camera.
Wearing the T-shirt.
Impostor.
Representing.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was released last October.
It was released in October.
I'm sorry?
Yes, in October. Yeah.
Yeah. An album, I understood it'd been 6 years in the making.
Yeah, like 5 or 6 years. Yeah. We were working on 2 albums at the same time, and we decided, whichever one is done first, we'll release. So we were working on a 2-hour live album and DVD and the studio album. And during that time, COVID happened, and I joined Kansas. A lot of things happened in our lives that just made everything go slower,
Yeah. But the album is out now for a couple of months. How have the reactions been so far to it?
To the album? Best reactions we've ever had to anything we've ever done. It's just been across the board, great reviews, and we've a bunch of top 20 of the top of 2024 critics' favorite lists, and just overwhelming love for the music. So we were just surprised and very grateful.
That's good to hear, of course. Now I was looking at the tracks and the things you have. Well, I don't have a lyrics or anything, but fortunately I could cheat a little bit with an interview you did with IO Pages. Picked up a few things about the album, but of course the title track is Impostor. It's about the imposter syndrome. But there are a couple of other topics that I found interesting on the album. You make songs about cancer culture, religious intolerance, midlife crisis. So I'm starting to feel that with Impostor you have something to say.
I always have something to say. I mean, I write what I feel, and I write what I observe, and what, sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's universal, it's kind of a social commentary, and sometimes it's kind of both things. It starts out personal and then it takes it to a broader level that everyone can relate to. So I think songs like Impostor and Cognitive Dissonance are like that. They start on a personal observation, and then the second half of the song talks about society at large.
Is that something that you write more about on previous albums as well?
Yeah, I think everything is inspired kind of by a snapshot from my life, something that will happen and will spark an idea or a concept, and then I'll develop it lyrically, and
I noticed that you wrote several songs with Jason Johnny, the drummer.
Yeah.
How do you guys write the songs together?
Well, it's funny the way we worked with Jason. Sometimes he'll send me an idea, and like for example the song "Chasing the Dragon," he sent me a minute and a half of music he recorded on MIDI, just a few ideas, and I turned it into 3 minutes of music, and I sent it back to him, and he added another 3 minutes to it, and he sent it back to me, and I added another 3 minutes. It turned into a 13-minute song with like a rock opera with 8 parts to it. So we basically just add sections, and I write all the lyrics. He usually comes up with something I didn't think about, a new theme that I work into the song. So we kind of bounce back and forth, and I haven't really collaborated so much until this album. You know, Jason and I really click musically, and we have a very good writing chemistry. So
Okay.
but
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah. How did you do that before? When with the previous albums, did you wrote those by yourself?
I would write most of the songs myself, and I would bring them into the band, and they would all contribute to the arrangement and give me ideas to improve it. But I did the bulk of the writing, and I love collaboration. I'm really into now co-writing with people and letting letting people's ideas populate my songs. I think it's exciting. I don't claim to have all the best ideas, So sometimes I'll have something and I'll be hitting a wall. I'm like, take it in another direction. Give me something I can work with. And
Yeah.
if you work with people you trust and respect, you'll know that they're not going to give you bad advice. You might disagree, not always agree, but you got to keep an open mind, I think.
Yeah, I get that. Well, you got quite an amazing band around you, with a lot of great musicians, also from different bands. Did you know them all before they got together, or how did you got in touch with them?
Well, Stratospheerius was my passion project. I started it in the year 2000. That's how old the band is. It was just a vehicle to explore the music that I love, progressive rock, fusion, and songwriting, vocal songs, and also exploring the electric violin, writing it into that music. And I was trying to find like-minded people that wanted to go on this journey with me. And the group has gone through different lineups and different eras. The current lineup is I think, the best lineup I've ever had. And Jason Gianni on drums, Michelangelo Corinali on guitar, Paul Ranieri on bass, and our keyboardist Bill Hubauer, who plays with us when he's available, because he's also touring with two different bands, so, including Crack the Sky. He's the keyboardist in that band.
Okay.
So
nice.
I know these people through different avenues. I know Jason and Paul through working with Mark Wood, the guy who built my electric violin. And Michelangelo was recommended to me by a former guitarist. So just, you get to know people in the music community.
You also had a couple of guest musicians on it. Well, quite a few. Also, of course, some various I say classical instruments on it, but also some vocalists. Not per se the first one I want to mention, not per se a vocalist, but Randy McStein.
Who is a vocalist? Yeah,
he's a vocalist. Okay, but he doesn't sing on this album.
He does.
He does. Did I miss that? Oh yeah,
he sings the second verse of the song "Cognitive Dissonance."
Yeah. He joined you for a couple of songs. I see his name pop up everywhere.
Yeah.
Is that also how he got on your radar? Like, hey, this guy is playing with everyone. I want to have him as well. Or
Randy started subbing with my band 2012, maybe, when he was like very young. Okay. Someone recommended him. He was like a prodigy. I think he was his early 20s at the time, and he played guitar amazingly well, and he toured with us. And then another time he toured with us as a bass player, and another time he toured with us as a drummer.
Drummer, wow.
Yeah, he plays
He's
everything.
A versatile guy.
My joke is if he ever learns violin, I'm out of a job. But Randy's he's an amazing singer, amazing songwriter. He's touring now. He's becoming more famous. He's touring with Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson. But this album, I've never had a guest lead vocalist before. I wanted to try something new, so I wanted Randy to share lead vocals on one of the songs, and he played some guitar throughout the album. Mm-hmm. And also I had Michael Sadler sing lead vocals on the song Storm Surge, and we had Chloe Lowry sing as a guest vocalist on the closing track, Chasing the Dragon. And we've never had a female vocal in the band. So I wanted to do something different, and I love the idea of, I've kind of come to know a lot of people in the progressive rock community over the years, and I love this cross-fertilization, this cross-collaboration that happens. Everybody plays on each other's albums, and, it's really a great scene that way, and it only makes the music better and enhances the whole experience for the listener, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I gotta say, it was an album that I absolutely enjoyed. It was it was new to me. I was not familiar with your work, so this was my first taste of it. But I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. Um, and I noticed the Storm Surge. You mentioned it with Michael Saylor on it. It's based on a theme from L'Orage, the Storm. I think it's a
Yeah.
classical piece.
If you look it up on YouTube, you could hear it, the original version. So I'm a horrible pianist. I would play it for you right now if I had the piano skills, but I don't. My son is a really good pianist, and he was studying pretty seriously, still is, you know. And at the time I wrote this, a bunch of years ago, he was working on this etude called L'Orage, which is Storm. And I was intrigued because I kept hearing him practice it. I thought the chords to this song are really beautiful, but it goes by so fast. It's kind of a virtuoso piece. And I mean, what if I slowed it down and turned it into a rock ballad, you know? So I started experimenting with that, and that was the basis of the song. And then I wrote lyrics, co-wrote lyrics with Michael Sadler, and Jason came in and added this whole middle waltz that didn't exist in the original version that totally fit into the song. That's what he does. He'll just bring in some new section that he's had lying around. I'm like, whoa, that takes it to a whole another dimension. And we had Fernando Perdomo on guitar and Ruti Celli on cello. And it was probably one of my favorite tracks on the record.
Okay.
And it sounds a little Queen-esque because of the classical.
Yeah.
words, I
Yeah,
think.
definitely. All right. Oh, that's really interesting to hear how how all these songs, you know, with all these different influences and inputs, you get some amazing music. There was one song that stood out a little bit. You included a King Crimson cover. Why did you
Yes.
pick that particular song?
I I don't do a lot of covers, but I pick my covers very carefully. That song was probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, King Crimson song. I love the Adrian Belew era, and Adrian's voice is in my range. It's very comfortable for me to sing those songs. I also thought, you know, that song had this fast ostinato part that Robert Fripp plays. I thought wouldn't it sound cool on violin, you know? So we started incorporating it into our live sets just for fun, and I thought let's record it and have a female singing the answering backup vocal parts. We had my friend Val Vigoda sing on that track as well. So that's a song that's also on our. We have a live version on our live album from 2023 of Frame by Frame as well.
So it's still a lot of kind of experimenting that made up this entire album and turned out into something really amazing.
Thank you.
That's very cool. Yeah. Now, something you mentioned about your son playing the piano. You come from classical trained parents, very musical. You started also with at a very young age with music. Now, I can understand a lot of children would not love to be practicing the violin when they're young. They would much rather play. How was that with you?
Yeah, you know, my parents are both classical musicians. My mom is a pianist, and my father is a classical violinist. We emigrated from the Soviet Union when I was 4 years old to the United States, and my father won the job with the Cleveland Orchestra, very renowned orchestra. That's how we ended up living in Cleveland, Ohio, and he worked there for 44 years in that orchestra. He just retired a little while ago. So I came from a classical background. I was trained. I started violin when I was 6 years old, and you know, I love classical music, but I felt that my path was calling me elsewhere. I loved the violin, but I also hated practicing and was rebelling against my father. And also, you know, I learned guitar and electric bass and started playing in rock bands and got really interested in rock music when I was, I think, around 12 or 13. You know, started writing songs. I grew up, in high school, I was listening to Rush and Led Zeppelin and Queen and Kansas and King Crimson and Frank Zappa and, you know, King's X. I can go on and on. So those were the bands that really fueled my fire that I wanted to emulate, you know, more so than Stravinsky and Beethoven. So,
Yeah.
and then I
Now,
discovered jazz. So I majored in jazz in college and learned how to improvise on the violin, which was a very valuable skill to have.
Yeah. So you got a lot of different musical influences around you. In the end, your main instrument is still the violin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
is.
you have one on. It's like I said, it looks very futuristic. It's a, but can you tell a little bit about this violin? Why is it so special?
So this is my main instrument that I play. This is a Mark Wood Viper fretted 7-string electric violin, and it's got a harness system, a chest support system, and a strap. So if I'm singing and playing, I don't have to hold the violin. My mouth is free to sing. And when I play in Kansas, I also play guitar. Sometimes I'm switching instruments in the middle of a song. So I'll have the guitar down here and the violin up here, and I'll just be going back and forth. The strings, most violins have 4 strings. The top 4, E, A, D, G, like regular violin strings. Then it goes down to C, like a viola, F, and B flat, which is lower range than a cello. And it's the lowest note is the first fret on the A string of a bass. So what you can do is walk bass lines. You can play power chords. So I incorporate all this stuff when I'm playing with my bands.
Wow, that's really awesome. Wow, so it's a very versatile instrument. You can do a lot of things with it.
It is, and I love to do live looping where I set up a loop and play the bass part, play the rhythm, play the chords, and improvise on top of it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But so in a live setting, you sing, you play the violin, and you play guitar.
In Kansas, I sing backup vocals, I play violin, and I play guitar. In Stratospheerius, I don't play guitar, but I play violin, and I'm the lead singer of the band.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's wow. So that's why you have that strap that you can have your hands free if necessary for things.
Yeah, there's a lot of different electric violins out there, but I wouldn't play anything else because it's just so comfortable. And for what I do, it's the perfect instrument. The other thing I want to point out, if any of your fans are like the show Breaking Bad, that's like my favorite show. The design for this I had, it looks like the smoke from the opening credits of Breaking Bad. It's based on that. So I call this instrument Heisenberg.
Yeah, that's a nice touch to it, definitely. Yeah, wow. You mentioned it a couple of times already, the name Kansas, of course, inevitable to come up, but I guess that's because of the fact that you play the violin that you got into Kansas. How did that go?
Well, they were looking for a violinist because my predecessor, David Ragsdale, had some personal issues, some health issues that prevented him from touring. He had to step back from the band. And I was friends with Tom Brislin, the keyboard player who I had worked with, and he recommended me. And I spoke with Phil Ehart, and I sent him. Phil is the original drummer and the manager of the band. And I sent him the video for the song Impostor and Storm Surge. And he loved the songs and invited me to join the band from the work I did with Stratospheerius.
Okay, so that's quite recent, I guess.
It's going on 2 years now.
2 years. All right.
I got the call 2 years ago in February.
Yeah. And how is it to be? Well, I mean, Kansas is, of course, a huge name. How is it to be a part of that?
It's greatest gig in the world. I'm so grateful, and I enjoy every moment. Everybody in the band and in the crew is like family. Great people. Music is challenging and fun. The fans are really welcome me with open arms, and I'm just enjoying every minute of it. I hope it continues as long as it can. And yeah, it's really, there's no downtime. When I'm playing that show, I'm always working and concentrating because the music is so complicated. But I never get bored. It's always exciting.
Before you joined them, has Kansas been an influence on you musically?
Of course, yeah. I mean, how can you be a rock violinist and not be influenced by Kansas? They kind of created the template for violin and rock music. Anytime you have violin in a rock band, people are going to compare it to Kansas. So yeah, I grew up listening to their music. Leftoverture is one of my favorite albums, and you know, the "Song for America" is one of my favorite songs of all time. So yeah, huge influence on my writing, and Robbie Steingart was a great musician, great singer, great violinist.
You mentioned that Stratospheerius goes back to, well, the beginnings of 2000.
Yeah.
It started out with you and Alex Skolnick,
Yes.
which is an interesting combination. I mean, you have a classical jazz background. Alex Skolnick has a death metal background. So interesting combination. How did it
He
work
also
out?
has a jazz background.
He does. Okay.
So how I met him was funny because I was new. I just moved to New York. I was doing my master's degree in jazz violin, and at night I was teaching at the new school. And I was leaving my class at night, and I saw a poster for a student Miles Davis ensemble concert. And I saw Alex's name listed, and I was like, "Is this the same Alex Skolnick?" Because I grew up reading Guitar World magazine and listening to Testament, and I would read Alex's columns, and he'd be on every poster and everything. So I'm like, I have to go to this concert. I got to see if it's Alex. So I went to the concert, and sure enough, Alex was there. He cut his hair. This was in the late '90s, and he was in this student ensemble at a jazz college, you know. And I went up to him, introduced myself. I'm like, "What are you doing here, man? What are you doing here?" He goes, "Yeah, I love jazz. I never went to college. I just, you know, I dropped out of high school and joined Testament, and we became very successful. So I just walked away from everything, and I moved to New York because he lived in San Francisco, and moved to New York and wanted to pursue his bachelor's degree in jazz guitar. So at one point, I gathered the nerve and asked if he'd like to play a gig with me, and to my surprise, he said yes. So we became friends, and he ended up recording and touring with what became Stratospheerius for about 2 or 3 years. And then when he finished school, he got really busy with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and Testament rehired him. He rejoined that band, and then he had his jazz trio because he wanted to be a jazz musician as well, which is rare to have a guy who's a great metal guitarist also be a really great jazz guitarist. You know. So we stayed in touch, but there was a moment where we were working together a lot, and we still occasionally jam together when we're both in town. You know.
Wow, it's amazing how these things happen. And
It's funny, man. You know, I can tell so many stories about people I've met by accident like that you know, have stayed in my life. And for me, I just wanted to have my own band. I always wanted to write and play my own music, and I needed to have that outlet because no one was going to do it for me, you know.
That's true.
I had to make my own kind of universe, and always felt that was an important part of my life that I needed to maintain, even though it could be a pain in the ass keeping a band together and writing and putting out records and all that stuff. You know, it's a lot of work.
It definitely is. Yeah. Now you've been doing all this for quite a few years, and unfortunately you're not that well known in Europe, or at least in the Netherlands, I guess. In the Dutch magazine I/O Pages, there was an interview with you, which is nice because that will help people to get to know you a little bit and get the backgrounds a little bit. At the same time, I also found that there's another Dutch website who did 2 reviews of Impostor and of the live album you mentioned. So
Yeah.
well, it's at least here in Europe, people are picking up the name Joe Deninzon Stratospheerius and your music, which is I think is a good thing. I think there will be a lot of people that will enjoy it and love it. So is there? If all goes well and people start picking up, would there ever be a chance that we see Stratospheerius live on stage in the Netherlands or in Europe?
I would love for that to happen. In fact, I was supposed to go to the Netherlands right before COVID hit. I had a tour planned and it got canceled when COVID hit. And then by the time COVID kind of went away, we were making plans again. And then I joined Kansas and got busy with Kansas. So since the new album came out, we've had a bunch of reviews in Germany, a lot of reviews in Germany, in the Netherlands, and Prague Magazine UK did a whole feature on me. And we have distribution now, Just for Kicks Music in Germany and Burning Shed in the UK. So I'm really hoping to make it to Europe one of these days. Part of my challenge is because Kansas is my number one commitment. I have to work everything around their tour schedule, and that can change, very fast sometimes. So I'm trying to figure that out. But I would love to come to Europe and play sometime in the next few years, for sure.